Hello, everyone in Black Women Promote. My name is Charity Barrett, and I'm a member of Black Women Promote, and I am honored to have the opportunity to speak with you all. Thank you to the admins of Black Women Promote for always having these wonderful opportunities to highlight members of the group and to also make sure that members of the group get exposed to good information, quality content. It's not too many groups I see functioning like this one, and I really appreciate how this group is operating. And I would love to see a lot more engagement and people collaborating and getting active in the group, because I really think that we as Black women, we need that extra push, we need that extra support, and that's what we need to do. So I want to get to my topic because I only have 15 minutes and I want to make sure it's concise. I'm going to be talking about 4 ways that you can build wealth that is not what you see typically people doing. It may be things that you've never heard of, and I want to make sure, because I know I haven't heard of those things, I want to make sure that you get the information that I didn't know when I was younger, and maybe if you get the information now, you can get started and start working towards financial freedom. So 4 wealth building strategies. I'll just name them at first. There's real estate, there's finance, private equity, and intellectual property. Those are the 4 I'm going to highlight this evening. Of course, there are others, but these are the ones I want to highlight that I think are important. Plus, I have some experience with them. And so with real estate, and I almost want to say it's self-explanatory. When you purchase a home, that's home ownership. That's considered an asset. Of course, if you have a mortgage, that's also considered debt. But over time, as you pay off your mortgage, especially if you have a good deal, then you're going to be getting equity in the home and working towards actually having the home paid off. So owning property really, land is finite. There's only but so much land, and so as the population grows, the concept of supply and demand will apply. And if you get your hands on land, not so much the building, the house, or the structure on the land, but if you get your hands on land, now you have a little piece of the pie, basically. And just to sit with that, a lot of people in our communities purchase homes and we might flip them, which is a way of making money. But sometimes we just end up selling our homes, and either selling it to get a better home or selling it just because you were offered a good deal. And what I want to encourage is making sure that you acquire properties and keep the properties, so that if you have children, then they will be able to benefit from those properties likely being paid off. So it will be like no mortgage. They'll have so many opportunities to do things with the homes or the property, because they don't have to deal with the financing and the struggle. And so I believe if you have children and you're concerned with legacy and setting them up for success, real estate is a wonderful way to do it. And also, when you own property, you can, once you have equity in the home, you can also borrow against the equity, which I don't advise, but there are circumstances that would warrant borrowing against your own equity in your home. So it just really puts you in a good situation. Also, when you own homes and they begin to, the debt that you have is starting to be paid off, and you're more towards owning the home than you are being in debt, that helps to build your net worth. And net worth has value, and I'll tell you why later. So real estate, make sure you are purchasing properties and multiple properties, because if you're able to figure out how to manage rental properties, now the sky's the limit. And a few ideas I can give you is Airbnb, Booking.com. Those are considered short-term rentals or transient rentals, and it can be very lucrative, okay, depending on what area you're in and the rules of your particular jurisdiction, it can be very profitable and an easy way to make money, especially if you're doing it out of the home you live in, which may be very simple to start and low cost. You also can run a business out of your property. So you might do, like some of the properties I have, we do assisted living out of them. When I first got started, I even had an in-home daycare. And then I eventually upgraded to commercial daycare. You can rent the property out to another business owner, and they're paying you, and maybe they're paying you more than what your mortgage is, so you actually get like a net profit. So property, I really just feel, is the way to go. If you're able to get your hands on some property, make sure you do so. And if you are running your own businesses out of the properties, it's a double investment. And so now you, like, even though assisted living, sometimes the money isn't always great. So it really helps when you know that you own the property, because on the months that you might be kind of like barely breaking even or not seeing like a huge net profit, at least you know your mortgage is being paid and you're getting closer to home ownership. So it makes it more, stomachable when the businesses are not giving you all the money that you want and deserve. At least you'll have your property. The next strategy I like to talk about is finance. And basically finance is how you manage money. You can use money to make money, actually. And an example of that would be the infinite banking concept. And infinite banking is when you take money and you use your own money. You're basically like your own bank. You become your own bank. And one strategy under the infinite banking concept is to get a whole life insurance policy, not term life insurance. That's something different. A whole life insurance policy. And then you put money into that and it becomes an asset, and you can borrow against it. And it actually accrues interest that you get usually somewhere between 5 and 8% return on your investment, basically. So if you have the money sitting there instead of in a savings account or just in your checking account or in your piggy bank, you have it in this policy here, and now it's compounding interest, and you can borrow against it. So if you have $100,000 in your whole life insurance policy and you want to take $50,000 out, you can borrow $50,000, and it'll be a good interest rate that you get as you pay it back, but you still get the interest compounding as if it's still $100,000 in there, even though you've taken money out. So you've taken money out, and it's treating it like the money is still there. You're making money. Now you're using this money that you borrowed against it to go and do another investment, right? Not that you want to go and, splurge or buy all this stuff that doesn't mean anything. You're going to use this money to invest in something else that gives you a bigger return than what your repayment rate is. So the infinite banking concept is really awesome. Whole life insurance. There's so much more, and I don't have enough time to get into all of the details, but just look it up. Go on YouTube, look up infinite banking concept and whole life insurance, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Another category under finance is like doing lending, becoming a lender, either like private money lending, or you can do small business lending. And basically you're like taking money that you have, letting another person borrow that money, and you're actually charging them an interest rate. You also can do that with credit cards. Now, of course, depending on your state, there are licensing requirements. They're very stringent, but it's doable. It's doable, and most people don't think twice about it, but look up the rules for your state of what you need to do to become a lender. And for small business lending, as long as it's business to business, right now that's an unregulated space for the most part. So you can get into that like this. That's how I was able to start Good Note Capital. because you don't really need to get a license as long as you're not loaning money to a basic consumer, which if you're not a business, you're a consumer, and they feel like consumers need to be protected. So they end up creating a lot of rules for lenders in theory that are supposed to protect the consumer. But if you keep it business to business, you don't have to worry about those regulations. So that's another way. Now imagine you have this whole life insurance policy and you take $50,000 out, and now you're going to take that money and you're going to loan it to a business. You're going to charge that business anywhere between 15 to maybe 25% interest. Maybe do a short-term working capital loan where you're supposed to get your money back within 90 days. Of course, there's a risk of default. People don't always pay back. But if you're really into investing and you're not risk averse, then you can actually take those kind of chances. Don't ever use money you can't afford to lose. But imagine if you did like loan someone $5,000, you know, and you charge them 20%, and 90 days later, if they repay, now you have a 20% return on your investment with money that you just had that might have been sitting in a bank or just in your whole life insurance policy. And so that's part of under the finance category, and most of the people who are very wealthy have at least like one of these four things that I'm talking about, but definitely finance is one of those things. Let's get to the third one, private equity. Private equity is basically when you basically make a business, excuse me. Private equity is when you pretty much make a business out of owning shares in private companies. Private equity is when you pretty much make like a business out of purchasing ownership in private companies or acquiring ownership in private companies. And when I say private companies, I mean companies that are they're not publicly traded on the stock exchange, on the stock market. Okay, so any company that has not gone public, if someone were to invest and try to buy equity in those companies, that is considered private equity. Now there's a catch. With private equity, there are some rules about who can invest in private companies, because you do have, again, this notion that people need to be protected as if they don't know better with the kind of things they get involved with. And so they don't want just the average person being able to purchase ownership in private companies. I can't tell you why. I know I have my suspicions about why they have these rules, but the rules are there. And here are the rules. If you want to be an investor that can purchase or get equity in a private company, you have to be what's called an accredited investor. And in order to be considered an accredited investor in the eyes of the Securities Exchange Commission, you need to have a household income of at least $200,000 if you're an individual and $300,000 if you're a couple. You also would need a net worth of at least $1 million. Now, recently in 2016, Congress passed some legislation that now allows people who don't meet those criteria to still invest in private equity, as long as they can demonstrate that they are educated in investment strategy, that they're not just a lay person trying to go and invest and like blow their whole retirement, you know, or lose all their money because they didn't know what they were doing. So they want to make sure people are, now they're calling them sophisticated investors. So you have accredited investors and you have sophisticated investors. And sophisticated, they're basically, you can bend those other rules, but you have to make sure that you demonstrate that you are knowledgeable about investing. Private equity can be wonderful. Private equity is how Warren Buffett has acquired his wealth. The fourth and final thing I want to talk about is intellectual property. So basically, innovate, create, come up with something that's new, and an idea or a product or something, maybe tangible. It doesn't even have to be tangible, but innovate. And after you do that, make sure that you protect your idea. Okay, and you do that by getting intellectual property rights, which come in the form of trademarks, copyrights, and patents. For the United States, that is. If there's anyone watching who's not in the United States, I want to make that clear. This is for the United States. The United States Patent and Trademark Office is where you file applications to get your intellectual property, make it official, basically. And what it means is that once you get the documentation in place and they approve your application, now you own this idea or you own this product. And if other people want to use your brand, your product, your idea, now they have to get your permission. And you will happily give them your permission for a small fee called licensing rights. It's a licensing fee. So basically people pay you for the rights to use your ideas. An example would be Walt Disney Company. Walt Disney thought up the idea of Mickey Mouse and all these characters, and he probably didn't even imagine that decades and decades and decades later that Disney would be what it is today. So anytime somebody sells a Mickey Mouse doll, wants to build a theme park, wants to make a movie, wants to write a book, they have to pay for the right to use the brand. And so every time someone uses the brand, the Disney company is paid because it's their idea. And even though he now is deceased, he's no longer alive, but his family, his company, still getting paid. Still getting paid. So intellectual property is one of those things that people really a lot of times don't know about, or they don't understand how it works. Another example of intellectual property would be like Microsoft. You can actually get a patent for software. So if you come up with an idea, you create this software or this operating system that like nobody else has come up with, you make sure you get your intellectual property in place. So now when the world wants to use your platform, well, now you're a billionaire. So these are just four ways that most people are not really thinking about when they're thinking about how they want to make money. You know, because a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we'll jump in and we'll go into retail, we'll do service-based businesses, we'll do businesses where you have to exchange your time for money, which is finite because it's only so many hours in a day. And a lot of times those are the businesses that we get in and stay in. I encourage you to consider some of these other avenues of building true wealth and eventually having passive streams of income that can benefit you and generations under you. So if you have any questions, I know this has really been a crash course, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Of course, I can't do free consultation to everybody, and I have been getting quite a bit of people messaging me and everything because I'm starting to, you know, get my brand out there and do a lot of speaking engagements. But if you want to know more, you can definitely follow my page, The Diamond Lab. You can also sign up for our app if you want to basically follow and see the content that I produce, because I do have plenty of videos where I go more in depth about these type of things, all type of ideas. So, you know, check it out, The Diamond Lab. I believe it's at The Diamond Laboratory. Spell that out. And so I'll make sure that I'll make sure you get this information so that you have it. But hopefully this has been helpful in giving you something to think about. I would like for you to go and research more. Go on YouTube, start reading books, and you'll see that what I'm talking about is real. I'm doing it myself, and I am a self-made millionaire. But net worth and cash flow are two different things. So that's one thing I like people to make sure they know. Just because you're a millionaire doesn't mean that you just have money. You know, it doesn't mean that. It means that you have enough assets that outweigh your debts that are more, it basically equals more than $1 million. So if you have a bunch of properties and you own businesses that have value, you can easily get to millionaire status, but not necessarily have the cash flow. That's one thing I think is another good topic I would love to speak on. Making sure people understand the differences between that and why both are important. So anyway, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.